Hey everyone, welcome to Reverse Homesteading. We are not in the rain today. We've got a bit of weak sunshine here in Melbourne in winter. Alrighty, we have these Swedes which have been in the garden bed for a little bit. Some of them have been a little bit munched, but they're definitely used to the temperature out here now. They're out of my mini greenhouse, so I've got my tag in. These are a little bit overplanted, but these are my silicone tray thingies, so they're usually pretty easy to get things out of. Well, they're not mine. There's no affiliation. They're sold by Mr. Fothergill's. Yeah, I've been using them for a couple of seasons now. They seem to be alright. I've just been buying them slowly. They're kind of expensive. Yeah, so in Australian dollars, there were two or three, maybe three, for $15, which is not cheap at all. But we don't seem to have things like the bootstrap farmer. A lot of people buy those things in the US. We don't seem to be able to get them here for a decent price. I'm not even sure if they ship to Australia, actually. But yeah, just things I've mentioned on other videos. Things about that big that are good for tomatoes. I've only found a very cheap version. And yeah, not even a very expensive version either, if I could even get them in Australia. But yeah, if you know of somewhere with a little pot about that deep but about that big, good for tomatoes and just planting things heavily and then sorting them out, let me know. So I'm just going to plant these little things, and then I'm on to planting more seeds. And I'm going to plant more of these because I'm trying to do succession sowing properly, which is, you know, when you don't forget is properly, isn't it? Yeah, so a lot of people succession sow every 2 weeks. Depends how much you're doing, how much you want coming out of the garden. In winter there's not a lot you can actually sow as seeds, but I've noticed the Swedes or rutabagas and what were the other ones? The bok choy, the what we would often call Asian greens. They just seem to pop up like crazy from seed, so I grow most things from seed. It's cheaper that way, and then you can grow them again from your own seed if you collect your seed. I've noticed a good way of getting these out of their little trays, even though I've put my dirty hands on there already, is to grab them here and just give them a good little tap there. These leaves are quite delicate, so I have to be careful. But they've got well-developed roots, it's good to see. These have been in since the 9th of May as little seeds, or planted as seeds on the 9th of May. So they've had well and truly enough time, now that it's June, 10th of June today. So yeah, about a month to get to this size, and they're almost to the size where they're too big in the shops. I usually plant mine a little bit too young, I think. Yeah, but we shall see. I'm sure these will be fine. And of course, don't forget to water these in immediately, because you may wander off and do something else and forget. Not that I've ever done that. Alrighty, these are my newest Swedes or rutabagas planted out. There were 26 of them, which is quite a bit, and I have yet again invaded the garlic area, hoping that'll be okay for light and space for everyone. But the garlic do tend to keep their roots to themselves, so that should be okay. Alrighty, ready for our next lot of progressive sowing or successive sowing. We have DT Brown Savoy cabbage, Virtus. I have a confession to make. I have not lost but misplaced my small seed gizmo. So I shouldn't have to do this with very small seeds. Just hope and hope that I won't end up with millions in my hand. Well, not millions as we know, but that I may have just a few too many. I won't plant too many because this is succession sowing. I usually start at the back, so I should do that so I'm not falling over myself. Here we have a dwarf bok choy, which is great because they do grow quickly. By Minara Seeds, also good. They provide little plastic bags for you, so you're much less likely to have trouble with them. And if you have water nearby, always try to keep your hose off the ground. I noticed in my last video, my hose was on the ground. It was hooked onto the side of my garden bed, but it had fallen off while I was videoing. So yes, try to keep soil off your head of your hose because you don't want fungal diseases from the soil, that sort of thing, getting into your garden beds if it's not there already. So you have Best of All Swede by Mr. Fothergills. So Swedes, I just planted some. I hated Swedes as a kid. I really did not like them. Not that my mother fed me Swedes and turnips. Turnips have similar taste. Not that she fed them to us all that often, but I just didn't like them. And now as an adult, I kind of do, which is really bizarre. I guess tastes change. And yeah, the best way is making a mash out of them with salt, pepper and butter. So you just, I suppose steaming them is better if you can get them soft enough. Better than boiling them. Boiling anything is just really usually not very good at all. So I'm going to put all my seeds out before I cover them, just so that I know that I've done them. So here we have a sweet shelling pea. So it's not a sweet pea, it's a shelling pea by Garden Basics, which is a Bunnings, goodness that's a lot, it's a Bunnings large store brand. It's the Garden Basics often sort of marketed to kids. It's like, well, they're the same kind of seeds, hopefully they're still as valuable as any other seeds you're going to sell us. Hopefully they're not dodgy seeds, I don't think so, but they're just basic varieties, I guess. You're not going to get heritage or amazing different things. Where I was going to plant one, but I'm going to plant two in each. The peas have not been coming up. I think it's just too cold. So let's plant some more. I think also they stayed wet too long. So I was going to show you what I'm going to do about that. I've got them in one of these trays, which you can probably see. You can see through that. You can buy these at most stores. They used to give them away, as I said. Their gardening areas, at least small nurseries, sometimes used to give them away. Not so anymore, at least in Australia. But that will let the water come through, because they won't sit in water, so they shouldn't rot so much. So there's a bit of a ledge here, and that amount will not be sitting on the shelf in water. Once your things are up, even peas, once they're up and getting a few leaves, I actually put them in something like this. I have shown you my little mini greenhouses. I get them from I've got them from Aldi and Bunnings. They've gone up in price more than they used to. But to keep your seedlings wet once the leaves have come onto your seeds and they've sprouted properly, all of them have sprouted. Don't do this if they're not sprouted yet. This is a kitty litter tray, and I was looking for something that would work, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're like $5. You might be able to get them a bit cheaper in Australia. So I just put all of these into here so that you can keep a little bit of water at the base if you've got hot weather, or if they're drying out. I've found in my mini greenhouse, if they've got sun on them all day, that at least the surface of the soil seems to dry out a bit. But that's the tricky thing in winter. Often the soil underneath will be fine and it's only the top that's dried out. So yes, these are my own seeds. They're peas for shelling. So, not dried peas. In Australia we call them dried peas if they're ones that you would store as a dried good, I guess is the word. Still, 2 is too much for here, but I'm going to overplant because I do things organically and something might get eaten or might not do so well. So peas are usually pretty forgiving if you get them out of their original thing pretty quickly. So I'll just push those down a little bit so they're easy to cover in a minute once we get to that part. This is damp just because it was in the packet, but I haven't watered this soil in yet. I didn't used to, and then I watered the soil in, and I thought I'd come back to this method, especially for smaller seeds, because you can just scrape the soil around and they're pretty much covered, or you can even leave them on top of the soil sometimes. This is my little stash of white-stemmed pak choy seeds. They're like bok choy, but not quite. We have a friend from Singapore, and I was telling him what was in my garden recently. So I said, oh, tatsoi, pak choy, bok choy, this, that. He goes, oh, you're speaking my language. So yeah, it's these kind of greens, Brassica greens. A lot of people call them Asian greens, Asian leafy greens. They're the ones that are just doing so well in winter, which is great. So that's why we're planting these again just a few weeks later and not a month later. Usually it's about a month later that you do successive sowing. I mean, it depends upon the season, depends on where you live, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to cover these little ones up. And remember, the peas, if you've watered them after you plant them, don't water them again. So I'm actually going to take them out of this tray so that I remember, because I think I may have forgotten last time because they're in a mixed tray of other things. That may have been why we had a bit of a fail on those last time round. So we'll just move this soil around a little bit, because once it's watered it will cover the seeds properly. And with these tiny little seeds, these Brassica kind of seeds, it really doesn't matter if they're not completely covered. They're pretty forgiving little ones. Now that I've spaced them out so nicely, I'll try to keep them approximately where they're going to be. Alright, so Swedes, these are a little bit darker, but you can still just see them on the surface. I try to sort of scrape my fingers off in the same area so we don't get things growing in the wrong tray. You can just cover them with a light, very, very light layer of seed raising mix. I just sort of alternate whatever I think will work. Always doing experiments. So many gardeners just say, figure out what works and do that. But it can vary so much, even season to season. Now this is a point where you have to make sure you've taken your seeds out of the way and you don't spray your seed packets, which I have done before. And a mist setting on your hose is really, really helpful. So just give them the tiniest little spray in. And then, so I don't forget, like I think I did last time, I'm going to take my peas out to another area in my mini greenhouse. I'll show you that in a minute, so that I don't overwater them and potentially have issues. I have direct sown some peas recently, but they haven't come up. It's been quite wet and very, very cold, so I'm thinking that's possibly hampering germination a little bit. I'm hoping they didn't get too wet, which means they would have rotted in the ground, because we've had rain nearly every day for about a week at the moment. Alright, take these to their new little home. Alright, into their new little home in my mini greenhouse. Alrighty, so I'm going to take these peas out because I think that's what I did last time. They Got some overspray watering because they're in the same tray as something else. So if we can physically remove them, I should remember when I'm watering just to water the ones that need it before they pop up. So those peas will need water once they pop up. So unless the top dries out quite a lot, then I only give them the very light spraying, and I think that's what happened with our windy weather. Gave them a light spray, but perhaps it was too much. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having fun in the garden. We'll see you next time.